Good morning, good afternoon, hello. This is Wrench Lyfe with a Y, because there's nothing as valuable as feeling good. Okay? This is episode 2. In episode 1, we kind of laid the foundation of it. In episode 2, I'm going to establish who we are, who I am, in line with the infographic behind me. You know, the bottom of it is you. So we're all the foundation of everything. And in line with that, I think in order for the message to get across, people need to understand where I'm coming from. And it's kind of fucked up that that's the way it is. I've had countless conversations or arguments with people. When you have the mindset I have about mental health, people often they assume that I must not have experienced it.
Very adamantly so, too.
While I presume that they have. Mm-hmm. So it's really frustrating. So I shouldn't have to prove that I've been through some shit. But that's what this podcast, this particular one's going to be about, establishing. I actually forgot to pull up the document I typed. But I was just telling you before we started, we're going to start every podcast with mindful moments in the practice of mindfulness. And we're going to start with, the beautiful Fifth Symphony of Beethoven, and take a moment to reflect on a beautiful moment you had. And if you're not having beautiful moments, well, then you should maybe be a little more aware. That's just so beautiful. It comes together right here. God. It's beautiful. So my beautiful moment, this is pretty personal. I don't really want to share it, but I will share it because it's pretty beautiful. The girlfriend and I exchanged the L word for the first time.
Oh,
I know.
That's lovely.
Yeah, it is something.
That's beautiful. It's like poetry.
Wow.
So that's... I'm not going to go into the details of that moment because it's very intimate, and normally I would never share that with anyone because whatever.
Yeah.
Blaze, do you have a beautiful moment you'd like to share?
Most of my Saturday morning was a beautiful moment that came out of a really shitty one. I woke up feeling pretty unhappy, and I just went to a bunch of places that I knew people and that made me happy, and I said hi to a bunch of people, and it turned my whole day around. I went to the gym and paid my dues, said hi to Greg, and went to the bakery and said hi to the homies there. And
so you could say you reflected on the support structure you have.
Yeah, I knew that if I went to a couple places, I would feel a lot better, so I did.
It's a great thing to reflect on.
Yeah.
Moving along, we're going to go into a moment, an anxiety moment, a chaotic moment. Ooh. Those moments which defined a massive period of my life. I rarely have them anymore, but we all know that feeling. Everything is spiraling. The weight of the world's on top of you. You can't think straight. It's just like, it's like this. Oh my God. So I haven't had a moment like that in a while, but last night,
a good one.
I was sweating this podcast a lot. I didn't really have it didn't come to a head, but I went out and rode in the snow last night, did like 10 miles or so, just like thinking about this podcast and telling my story. And I had to sit down and kind of write through it, and get it across in a concise way and share a lot of details that I normally don't talk about my life aside from like very specific people I'll tell. But I was super stressing that I have to do this. Well, I don't have to, but I'm choosing to do it. So that it wasn't super chaotic, but there was definitely a lot of anxiety behind this for me.
I bet. Yeah, you're not a very we're almost opposites in that way. Right, I share almost everything pretty easily, and you're much more conservative with
I just don't want
feelings.
Well, that's the tough intersection here. This is I don't want people to judge me. Like I don't want. Hold on, let me phrase this right. People will use hardships and their experience as leverage or like social extra credit, you know. And I don't want someone to be like, oh, I want to support Dave's skate park because that guy's been through some stuff. It's like, no, I want you to judge the skate park for the merit of how I run my business, you know. So that's generally how I live my life. So doing this this particular version of the podcast is very counter to one of my core ethics. So I was stressing it a lot.
Makes sense.
So what was your moment?
In accepting that job that didn't end up panning out, it was a job that I kind of needed but didn't really want, I guess. It was just kind of like the situation I found myself in. I had tried it out. I had been offered a position, and I basically had a 2-day panic attack about it until I finally texted the guy like, yeah, I'll come in and work just so we could put this all behind me and just start working. And like hair pulling, laying on my floor in anxiety, like I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Just wanted to end all the different scenarios I can get through. Yeah, I got a lot of those moments. That's something I'm working on.
Dude, in my darkest days, I used to have crazy social anxiety panic attacks. And people are, I have social anxiety. And it's like, okay. Everyone has social anxiety because we're social creatures. And the way we interact, and there's all these hierarchies of status. It's like there needs to be anxiety and pressure there because it establishes where you exist in this world, right? But sometimes it goes a little bit haywire. And I don't know if this is in line with that or if this was a separate thing, but so I would go out, and this is like something that would trigger it. Basically, a lot of it was about people being fake, and I'm sure that's a distillation of a bigger problem I was having psychologically. So I would go to those bug jar Thursday night party things, right? And there'd be a girl, and she's doing the shit the girls do. And, she's, got a denim vest on, the Motorhead patch on the back or something. Yeah. And I'm sure part of it affected me a lot because, a lot of those girls had similar style to my ex, and that, like, really fucked me up. And then it's like a dance party. So the girl is projecting this image, like, she's like, oh, the denim and, like, patches and, like, Motorhead's freaking sweet. And then she goes on the dance floor, and she's dancing, singing every word to these pop songs. And I'm just like, who are you? Who are you? Like, you can, and I'm not saying you can't do that. I'm saying you're projecting one image, and then your actions are projecting another image, and I'm like, so you're in my anxiety of that day. I was like, so you're fake, and everyone's fake, and I can't trust you, and I can't trust anyone. And then like the whole room starts spiraling. I was like, everyone at this bar is just here for personal gain. They don't give a fuck about anything but themselves. Everyone's a liar, and I made it a thing to not leave, although there was plenty of times I did just go home, and I would like sit down and I'd open my phone and I would type out in an online journal just like the angry, like, fuck everyone, fuck the world, everyone's fucking fake. And eventually, they happened less and less frequently, and a lot of people are shitty and fake. Yeah.
But what a crazy defense mechanism your brain built up for that.
Oh, dude, because I was lost. I was homesick. I had no real connections. I was trying to find connections. I felt betrayed because, my own issues I made, and the whole fucking world sucked. And I was just like, everyone sucks. Everyone's fake, I was damaged goods. All right. Moving on to the third mindful moment. This would be a moment of anger, hate. Those moments where you get blinded and you can't. Some people even black out. I have a very, very long temper, so I don't really have them. But some people, to them, it's just like. Pack your fist full of hate. Take a swing at the world. Oh, it's so good. I feel like my anger is like if it was like a audio file, I'm not like up, down.
Yeah.
I'm like constantly like halfway up in a controlled like, it's like some people's anger is explosive. Mine is like a steady burning fire that I've managed to put behind me. So I don't really get those crazy angry moments aside from like filming bike tricks. But
Yeah.
do you have one for me?
No, I mean, I definitely, there's a lot of anger in there somewhere, but I really think the last time I got, like, whew, I don't know, the one that comes to mind is like just dumb stuff with my dishwasher at Good Luck, where like I went to turn down his music, and he started throwing things. I went and because he's blasting terrible trap rap so loud I can't hear myself think, and it's a loud environment anyway. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, Henry, you're gonna turn the music down. What the fuck? What are you doing that for? He starts throwing pans. It's a 55-year-old man that's been to prison.
Don't be rude.
Yeah, and he's being rude. And I just remember being so angry I almost walked out. I was just like, I'm not gonna. I work too hard to get yelled at by someone when I'm just. Not that I'm better than anyone. That's not what I'm saying. It's like,
No,
it worked too hard for me to be like, hey, man, just turn your music down and getting yelled at. It's just that's not okay.
Yeah.
That made me angry.
The angry moments, I don't have them a lot, but that's kind of in light of eventually getting Gary, my brother, involved. Like, he's a hothead. Like,
Yeah.
Like, Gary, I know you're going to listen to this, and I want to tell you, I'm still fucking mad. From when we were kids, you'd lose your temper every time we played mini golf until Dad was like, we're not playing mini golf anymore. And I fucking love playing mini golf, dude. You ruined that for me. Yeah, so I'm not a high temperament person. I don't have a short temper. My mom and my brothers both do. So I can really relate to that because I've seen it unfold a lot. Mm-hmm. So you see it enough times, usually you kind of come to understand it to some degree.
Same. I mean,
but
my dad.
Oh yeah,
my dad's got some anger.
Your dad definitely does the blackout kind of anger. He probably doesn't recall what he says when he gets mad.
Yeah, it's always been a thing. We've always. Yeah. I think he's got a much better handle on it now. And I think the skate park was a pretty stressful thing.
Oh yeah. So. Sometimes you just gotta
take a little time.
And you take a deep breath, and the world is still spinning. And you got to take those beautiful moments and balance them against the angry ones and keep moving forward. So on to the topic of the day. What are we in? 10 minutes in?
Making great time.
This is going to be tough. So I think this will probably be mostly a lot of me talking, but
cool.
I want to open up by telling you, any questions, feel free to shoot them at me. I kind of wrote this down in a concise way, and so I don't want this to be like an hour of me telling you this shit. But I broke it down before I give you a timeline, a rough timeline. I broke it down into 3 key factors about like my being, my personality, 3 key factors about my story, and then 3 key events of that story. And these things are all going to kind of overlap. But so this is an interesting one. My like being, like I don't want to say personality. I feel like it transcends personality. I've had a deep sense of purpose since I was young. Mm-hmm. Like in hindsight, I had a lot of like the archetypical hero like daydreams. Like, and I was in grade school, that I had this one in my head all the time, where like the gym, we're in gym class, and the gym floor would like open up into like a pit of like lava or some shit, and it was like I would single-handedly like save everyone. Like, the old school gyms, you had the rope you climbed up. I don't think I do it anymore because it's not safe for some reason. Pussies. And I would like save each person one by one, and it was like, that's like grade school, And as I got a little bit older and I was in high school, I realized that I was different than other people in the way I could read social situations. Like, I saw the way even my teachers were judging other people. Mm-hmm. So I was like, there's something different about me. Like, and it might be as simple as like emotional intelligence or social intelligence, something like that. But that deep sense of a purpose and like how I saw things was something that like really affected me, and I was like, it's something that shouldn't be wasted. I was like, I feel different. I have a purpose, and I need to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
I was misguided. Maybe a little bit willfully blind and misguided, but
yeah. Yeah, I had a similar thing where my mom would always call it being able to see around the corner. Like you have a good understanding of how people act and why they're doing the things they're doing and what's gonna come of what's happening. You know.
So. It could be a matter of empathy too, like just knowing that. I don't know. That's why I'm saying it's like this deeper, bigger thing, right? Mm-hmm. The second key factor of my being would be my father. My father was the freaking man. Everyone thinks their parents are like geniuses and like they're the archetype of adulthood. And then you get older and you realize that your parents kind of suck and you kind of suck. You know, it's like we're just humans and they were just trying as good as they could do. Mm-hmm. My dad was ridiculous. He was like super smart and intelligent and pretty creative and empathetic, and like he did everything. If it broke, he fixed it. Like I grew up in a household, well, for the first half of my childhood, where if something broke, Dad fixed it. His car broke, he was in the driveway fixing it, like always. So I was like, that instilled in me the fact that when there's a problem, you don't outsource it. Mm-hmm. I don't think I can't recall a single thing my dad outsourced to fix ever.
Wow.
So that's a huge piece. And then the other thing that really defined my existence is I had a long-term struggle with like my identity and like who I am in relation to these things, in relation to the way I feel, and that was pretty much ongoing until fairly recently, and I'm sure is still ongoing. Now, the key factors about my story is I have what I call a trichotomy of family life. Basically, the first third was very wholesome family life, borderline agrarian. The second third was finding some freedoms because my mom kind of was starting to check out. Mm-hmm. And then the third part of it was like absolute deterioration. So that gave me perspective of multiple sides of it. Mm-hmm. And I could see the things that I valued and whether they were right or wrong or whatever. The second piece of the story is my relationship to progression-oriented sports, BMX. That freedom it gives you, the way you learn things incrementally, like that framework is really the basis of the progression-based idea of Wrench Lyfe. And the third thing was, I had a non-stop quest for knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that said there's overlapping to that sense of purpose and the way my dad was. So the key actually events would be the deterioration of my family, and I would call that event in a global thing. Like when they'll say there was a cooling period, it was a global event, so it wasn't a singular event, right? My move to Rochester and the collapse of the only positive relationship I had in my life when I was younger, which was the girlfriend. Let's get a drink here. So I'm going to try to give you this rundown. So yeah. And this is important to say because aside from all the bullshit I've been through, the internal struggles were way worse. And that's really important because people are like, oh, it's my life. It's this thing that happened. It's my dad or whatever. All the shit I'm going to tell you that happened in my life, like it certainly had an effect on me. But the biggest struggle was completely of my own doing in my head. So basically, I grew up in a farmhouse. We didn't farm. It was just a farmhouse. Quarter-mile driveway, big fields around us. There's like 170-something acres. Wow. Grew up just playing in the woods with my brothers.
Sweet.
It was fucking dope. Riding bikes and shit. There's all these abandoned buildings in the woods. There was an old apple orchard or something.
Is that where you found the cannonball?
No, that was later.
No.
So it was a borderline agrarian. It was very traditional. Like,
what is agrarian?
That's like the lifestyle of like early 1900s, like farming,
Okay.
just very traditional, like early American life kind of stuff. Like lots of siblings, everyone lives at home, you stay in the town,
Yep.
you grow everything.
Yeah.
So some of the key factors there is like we had dinner together every night, period, always. We sat down at dinner time, we ate dinner together. I had two brothers, money was always tight. We didn't get seconds at dinner unless you finished your first, so it means you didn't get more of the, whatever the potatoes you liked if you didn't eat all the vegetables, and there was no seconds for like the protein or whatever, because
It's expensive.
yeah, your dad, my mom, I stayed at home mom, my dad was a postal worker, so raising a family, 5, not super easy. We had no cable TV, we had no internet, we didn't have soda, never had takeout, never had fast food. Like, we didn't have any neighbors. Well, one neighbor, but they didn't have any kids our age. Like, really, like, when I went to, like, a birthday party for someone from school, and it was, like, pizza and soda, I was like, frick yeah, dude! It was the dopest thing. Like, we never did, and, like, we never went, and I'm not complaining about it. We just never did anything like that. We didn't go to, like, a Chuck E. Cheese or some shit. Like, we went on camping trips. We did, my dad did wholesome and economic vacations. We camping twice a year, basically. So that really gave me the understanding of the foundation on why like the sit down meal is so important and why family values are so important. When I read these statistics from like Thomas Sowell of his the breakdown of the American family, I totally get it, because we would do you get milk and cookies after dinner or whatever. 2 cookies if you're good, 1 if you're bad, none if you were shitty. And the thing was, you couldn't leave the table unless you were excused. Can I be excused? And no.
Yeah.
You were an asshole today.
You sit
there and you watch everyone else enjoy your cookies. Like, those are crazy important life lessons.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't even put a value on that. So then my mom leaves my dad. She, I don't know. I don't really know what she was thinking. My dad would have stayed together for the kids forever, I'm pretty sure. A lot of the perspectives that I'm going into here are going to be in hindsight. At the time, I was just a kid, and I was super distracted because all of a sudden we moved out, and then here it comes, baby. Cable TV, Nintendo 64, pizza, Pop-Tarts, Hot Pockets. Oh, God. Dude, that was 7th grade, I think.
Oh, yeah. That's when you eat a lot of Hot Pockets. That's the age.
And then all of a sudden, it's like, dude, I didn't know what the hell was going on. I was just like, this is dope, Eventually in there, we had access to a computer. We didn't exactly have internet, but we had access to one occasionally. Like, I was like, this is freaking awesome, And it was all fine and dandy. We lived in this 2-family house, not a divided. It was just a big, old, shitty, like 200-year-old dilapidated house. So there was probably 9 people living there. Not super ideal. The family we lived with, the matriarch, was pretty neurotic, and that led to a certain amount of stress and shit going on. What the hell was that noise?
I kicked my coffee cup from last week.
Let's see. What is that? Lost. Oh, yeah. Yeah, the conditions weren't super great. The people we were living with weren't super great. In hindsight, there's probably a lot of substance around there.
Mm-hmm.
I guess any use of it, you could say, is abuse, but it was a lot of people that were using substances regularly. But nothing crazy, yeah.
Just sustainable, I guess.
The bathroom, there was one bathroom in addition on the back half of the house that we used, and then the other only shower was upstairs in the master bedroom for the other family. Eventually, the bathroom floor, collapsed.
Oh.
The tub fell into the floor. It was slowly collapsing, so, where, there would be caulk, there was, a 3-inch gap into, the abyss. And over time, it got worse and worse, and then the toilet started to fall through the floor, and then we basically just closed the door and locked it and pretended that room never existed. Then it was 9 people sharing one bathroom.
Oh, that's all good.
Well, there was a second only toilet bathroom downstairs.
Okay.
So, and it was an addition, so it was the ceiling was this tall, nose height. So I would shower, I'd be hunched over because I was kind of tall.
That's crazy.
Yeah. It was,
You don't take a bath in that tub; it'll fall.
No, yeah, yeah. And again, like I didn't know. Like I was
you're
like,
just like this is. It's like that meme of the little dog
everything
in
on fire.
Yeah,
this is fine.
It's fine. You're like, cool. We just don't use that one anymore. I get it.
Yeah, there was like a second
Use
living
upstairs.
room, and it was just like piled up with boxes and just like crap. And there was like it was just like a disaster. Like if I walked in there as an adult, I was like, oh man, these are rough conditions. But as a kid, I was like, my mom was just getting pizza every night or whatever from the pizza place next door because she was kind of like checked out. She was doing her thing, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Then my mom bought a house. So then we moved out of that situation with that other family into my mom bought his own house. It's a pretty decent house. You know, everything's expensive in Jersey, but we had this house.
Mm-hmm.
It was right about this time we moved across the same town, but other side of the town. The first move we moved like a block. This time we were on the other side of the same town. It was in I would say definitely the poorest neighborhood in the town. It was all modular homes, 2 trailers glued together.
Okay.
A lot of, low income, I guess. It was around this time. Well, let me just establish this. So my mom's boyfriend moved in with us. He had already lived with us at the other house, but now he's in this new house. My grandfather moved in with us. My older brother, Nick, wasn't actually supposed to live with us. My mom was like, you could crash on the couch as long as you need, but, we're putting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in a 3-bedroom house.
Yep. Not ideal.
He wasn't ever going to leave, and he didn't ever leave. So Gary and I, we shared a room. And, that was okay. Still, now we had full access to internet, so now I'm just like, fuck yeah, I got internet. Get my aim away message up, dude, but then my brothers and I would fight about the internet. So, pretty typical. Nothing's too rough. Then my mom's boyfriend gets sick. He is diabetic. He didn't really take good care of himself, so I'm sure that left a lasting impression in me. And he had a couple, I think his liver or kidney failure, and he was on dialysis, and some other shit happened. And long story short, he died in the hospital.
Wow.
I think the hospital kind of botched it, and then botched it, and then by the time they transferred him to another hospital, they were the other hospital was like, "What did they do to this guy?" And he died.
Wow.
Yeah. And then some shit happened with his family and my mom. Rob and my mom were never married, but they were together for a couple of years. And
it's a weird gray area of...
Yeah, and the family, I guess they just kind of dipped out on my mom. They were Jewish, so they sat Shiva. And I guess the family kind of conspired to just all stop talking to my mom in the same day.
Wow.
And like I said, my mom's she's something. So, I don't know. I wasn't going up and hanging up with them when they were doing that thing. So I don't know what she was doing, what she's saying. All I heard on her side was that my mom was in love with this guy. He died traumatically. In the months she was in the hospital, her drinking was just that's when her drinking problem essentially really went out of hand. And then things started to get rough.
Yeah.
I think it was about a year or so later, my grandfather, he died as well. My older brother was kind of he had always been kind of not so great and into drugs, selling drugs, doing this, getting sketchy shit.
And you were how old at this point? You
so
and
this
Nick
is
and
about...
Gary?
So we moved into the house right before I think I was a freshman.
Okay.
So that would be 2000.
So you're right. Almost, you and your brothers are
2001?
nearly young adults, teenagers.
Yeah, somewhere in there. So then it was around this time after I moved that I had met the long-term girlfriend, and I'm gonna preface this real hard. She's a great person. Nothing against her at all. This is all of my own doing. So I met her around there. It's worth noting because she came into my life as things were deteriorating, and that's a real big key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
So things are getting kind of toxic at home. There's a good amount of drugs around, alcohol around. I didn't really know. I didn't realize it. It was I knew it was happening, but I kind of just looked the other way and I was like, whatever. I'm in high school, and when you're 15, 16, you're just kind of checked out and you want to hang out with your friends, and so riding was a way to get out of the house. The girlfriend, blah 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 blah.
Yep.
So then, 2006, 2008, the tail end of high school, I was pretty hardcore straight edge. I saw my mom's deterioration with alcohol and other things eventually. And I saw my older brother, his drug use.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm realizing now I forgot a huge piece back in there of the story, but whatever. So one of the key events that happened that I forgot to put in when I first started was saying is that around this time, as things were deteriorating, my younger brother Gary was trying to kind of tag along. I believe he looked up to me because I was his older brother, and in comparison to our older brother, like the choice is pretty obvious. Who's got them
together.
And
role model.
I was just hardcore, like, I'm an individual and I'm unique, and I was just I was rejecting everything. So, I had blue hair or like a mohawk, and it's like, just, all that shit. Mm-hmm. So when like Gary got a mohawk too, I was just like,
why are you copying me?
Get your own thing, And then he got a BMX bike, he got a Mosh.
Nice.
It had a cassette wheel on it, and I was like, fuck, I don't even have a cassette wheel. And he wanted to come ride with us, and I was like, nah, like, don't ride with us, like, get your own thing,
Yeah.
And that's like the biggest mistake in my life, and I can't take that back, and I think that has a huge impact on why I do what I do with the kids every day. It's because, like, even if Gary's he's back, he's killing it, he's doing super well, I'm so proud of him. But even then, like, that whole period where he went, I could have done something about it, right?
Yeah, but that's all hindsight. It's not like you can put all that weight on a 15-year-old,
Well, it took me years to figure that out,
But it's something you can't unthink now, for sure.
So then I was like hardcore straight edge, and I was getting pretty angry at the world. All I wanted to do was ride. I've been dating the girl for a couple years. She was. So we're going a little bit later here. So this is post high school, because it'll be like a 2-year gap between us. So her friends started getting into partying a little bit. And that's fine. That's what people do. And I was like hardcore straight edge, so I was just like, no, this is bad. And then so she would like go out and get drunk and lie to me and turn off her phone or something like that. And I don't blame her. I was being crazy. I was like, my life was spiraling out of control. Well, it felt like my life was spiraling out of control, so I was trying to like control her in an attempt to feel like I had some control. Mm-hmm. And then that just made it worse, obviously. And then we ended up breaking up for a period of time because of that. Let's see. Yeah, my mom really deteriorated. She was like doing ambient sleep, and I think she was on pain medicine for something else, and I know she was getting radiology stuff in the mail, so I'm not really sure what was up with that. Mm-hmm. And and you're taking, I think she was on Xanax too for anxiety, so she's taking a concoction of stuff.
That's a whole pile
drinking
of
a whole
drugs.
lot. Oh yeah.
Wash it down with the liquor.
Yeah. And to
mix it all up.
Yeah, to give you some, like, how fucked up she was, and like, it's fine. God, I hope she never listens to this. If I do, I'm sorry, Mom, but it's the truth. You're a little neurotic. I would have parties at the house, like parties at the house. And we would have a bunch of people over, music playing, whatever it was, playing beer ball or whatever. Just like, this is a little out of chronological order. This is a little bit later because I didn't start drinking till I was 22. So okay. I'm still like in like the 20 period here. But to point at her at the worst point, we'd have legit parties at the house.
Yeah,
and she
would be there sleeping. No,
she would come out of the bedroom.
Yeah,
in like an ambient zombie phase and make a sandwich. It was like a piece of American cheese on white bread, and she would, whether there was 20 people in the living room raging, no one in the living room at all. She would just make the sandwich, sit there at the counter, eat the sandwich, and then go back to her room, like completely just in like
zonked out.
And then we didn't know how fucked up Ambien is. Now, like, we know, like, there's Ambien stories all over the place. Like, that shit fucks you up.
Yeah. People, like, wake up driving their car somewhere.
Yeah. So, another key thing that happened is my older brother, who died last year, he was in this terrible car accident, right? Mm-hmm. He went up.
This is all at the same time. This is
yeah. I just
post high school.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is just post high school.
Okay.
Gary was still in high school.
Okay.
Nick went up to the hood to pick up his dope or whatever, and I think they got arrested or something. In the morning, they were coming home. I guess they got out in the morning. I'm not sure of all those details, but they basically like drove across the median in the highway, drove head on to a car. Like,
Oh wow.
my brother was a passenger. He got ejected from the car, like helicoptered out, resuscitated, in a coma. Like, they didn't think he was gonna make it. I think they even told my mom after he woke up that they're like, dude, we didn't think that like this was
Yeah.
gonna happen. I think they told her if he did wake up, he was certainly gonna be like, you know,
Like,
a vegetable
Yeah.
or whatever. But my mom said, famously, she said, he's too mean to die.
wow.
And and he didn't die. He came out of the coma. You know, he ended up being handicapped, but he was in hospital for months. He was in a brain rehab center for months. In the time that he was gone, what happened, I guess my interpretation of it is all these addicts were coming to the house looking to buy stuff. Because essentially I was living in a trap house.
Unknowingly. Or
Yeah.
knowingly, unknowingly.
I didn't give a fuck. I just go out and ride. I go to work. I'd go out and ride. I'd come home. I slept in the top bunk bed in this tiny bedroom, and that was it. Pretty much anything I ever had that was like had any value was stolen from me. So I kept everything either in my truck or in my bed, and I kept my bike in the living room. It would come everywhere with me otherwise, and everyone knew, like, if you touched my bike, I'd fucking kill you.
Yeah.
That was like the one.
Yeah. Just don't take
touch it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, all these addicts come into the house, and I guess my brother decides, and what's you could argue is a smart economic move. Well, why don't I offer the product that these people are coming here and asking for?
Yeah. It's like, I know how to do all this stuff. Why not
Yeah.
just do it?
And then you can't be around that stuff. It's only a matter of time before you get tied up in it.
Yeah.
So then, that's basically what happened. And by this time, I was pretty checked out, so I'm not really sure of a lot was going on. Like I said, like I'd come home, straight to my bed,
Yep.
straight to go out. Eventually, the hot water stopped working. I think I was living at the house, I think for about a year without the hot water. And I was like, finally, like, all right, I think I'm going to leave. I tried to buy a hot water heater for my mom. And she's like, why the fuck are you going to do that? I was like, I don't know, like, you bought this house,
Yeah.
so, like, we should take care of it. And she's like, oh, I haven't paid the mortgage in, like, 2 years. And I was like, oh,
It's good.
okay. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going to try to move out. I moved out. Then my younger brother, he ends up getting caught up in some bad shit. He ends up in a jail, county jail or whatever. My older brother in the rehab center. He gets a settlement for his accident because he was a passenger or whatever. And he got, I don't know, like after the lawyer got like a third or whatever it was, he got like $3 million, something like that.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. So now Nick comes out of the rehab center. Gary's in jail. I believe they kind of like screwed with Gary a little bit. He was in county for like months and months and months. Like, they wouldn't indict him. It was like really weird. So
Sometimes you can get lost in the system there. Like if you're in a holding cell and they just like pass over your paperwork, you're just like
knows?
stuck. Go on.
So then, and in the time I had left, the furnace actually broke too. So then there was no heat. There was no hot water.
Wow.
The house has been at this point probably 4 years. Hadn't paid the mortgage, something like that. And Nick's like, you take a chunk of his money, it goes into a trust fund, another chunk of money into another trust fund, and then he gets like a lump sum, for him to, buy a house and kind of get back into the world. Obviously, because he's kind of handicapped, he needs a walker. There are certain things expenses he has because of that.
Mm-hmm.
So he gets out, and we're like, oh, cool. Like, anyone that has any logic is like, all right, cool. Well, Nick is probably going to get a lawyer for Gary.
Mm-hmm.
He'll get indicted. We'll figure that situation out. Mom will be out of this shitty house, and, like, we'll see. But as my mom said, he's too mean. In hindsight, Nick absolutely was a sociopath.
Mm-hmm.
He gets his settlement, doesn't say a word, doesn't do anything. He's going to see Gary at the county jail every week, but not
doing anything about it.
Yeah,
just saying hi.
Yeah.
How's it?
And then he buys his house and doesn't tell, like my mom, I think she was preparing to move out. And then the day he's like, goes to move, he's just like, no, you're not coming with me.
Jesus.
Like, and he's just like a sociopath. He's bitter and fucking resentful and like mad at the world and just everything. You know, for someone like Nick, nothing is his fault.
Yeah.
Nothing is his fault. My mom was
Can't
kind of similar like that. You know, I see with Gary, when Gary's stressed out and when Gary was in rough shape, he gets into that mind state where like it's everyone else's fault.
Mm-hmm.
And now that Gary's crushing it, he's like, well, he's looking at himself honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Nick gets the settlement. It just says like, "Fuck you, everyone."
Yep.
And now he's living in this nice house by himself. And I guess just went right back to doing drugs and everything. And he overdosed on heroin last April. So money doesn't buy you happiness, for real. Like,
Yeah.
he had a lot of money, and all he wanted to do with his money was heroin, I guess. So then I was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Like, it's just a constant mess. And the opportunity to move to Rochester came, and I took it. I moved to Rochester. I'm at with minutes here. 40 minutes, all right. I was still with the same girlfriend. We had on and off. You know, there was one point in time some shit happened. Like one of my best friends and her like hooked up or some shit. So we didn't talk for a little while. But for the most part, go for like, I don't know, 7 years or something.
Yeah.
And she kind of wanted to move. Like a lot of girls, I want to go. I want to adventure. I want to move.
go with you.
You know. And I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's go.
And a lot of people in that situation don't think about the logistics of that. Like, I had a girlfriend that would be like, oh, I'll move to Chicago with you, and you want to do that? And I'm like, you realize that, like, it was a problem that how much I was working.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you realize how much I work now, it'll be more. We're going to live in the same place, and you won't know anybody there. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's a bad idea. Yeah, you got to think about all those things. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, so with all that shitstorm of a family life going on, I was just trying to distract myself from everything that was happening, and getting away seemed like a good idea. Because obviously I said, like, I had this thing in my head, like, I gotta do all these things. You know, I was like, I'm gonna move out of here, and I'm going to try to figure out, you know, who I am and what I'm gonna do with my life or whatever. And so what happened was the girl, she bailed. It went from like, I'll move to I'm not going to move to if I find a job, I'll move, you know. And she didn't come. And then this is the good one. I moved here in May. I think it was 6 years ago now.
Wow.
By like November, it was pretty obvious the relationship was deteriorated to the point where, you know, all that would save it was a Hail Mary. So I was going to go for it. So I did that genius thing. I was like, I got her a fucking ring.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. And I got it on a Black Friday special. I was broke as shit, you know. But I got it in this Black Friday special. It was white gold and black diamonds. Pretty cool.
Sick.
And I don't know what the fuck happened. I got it from like, I went to the mall. Like they had it like, you know. And they're like, oh, we'll ship it to you or whatever. Because the Black Friday thing is in a warehouse. You know, we don't keep, you know.
Yeah.
And then I never fucking got it in time. I went home for New Year's. And I didn't actually get the ring in time, which is annoying. But I was just like, oh, whatever. Like, it's more symbolic than anything, right?
Yeah.
And so I put it off. I was home for like 3 days or something. I kept putting it off until the last night I was in town. And she was dropping me off at my friend's house where I was crashing. And I was just like, hey, I want to talk. And she's like, oh, I want to talk too. And I was like, you go first.
Oh no.
Yeah, and then so she broke up with me.
Whoa.
And she's like, what did you want to say? And I was like, oh, nothing.
Nothing.
It wasn't a big deal. It's fine. Everything's fine. But I
Feel fine. Feel great.
I told her, and I'll never fucking forget it. She was like, you got me a breakup ring? And I was like, it's not what I fucking thought, you know? Like, her mind was made up, rightfully so. It's so fucking bad. So then it gets better. Driving home, there was a snowstorm coming through. So I got up really early to try to beat the storm. Mm-hmm. Made it to Binghamton, no problem. Then I hit the snowstorm. I tried to go along the southern tier and then up, rather than up to Syracuse. And I got caught I got caught in the blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
It took me like 12 hours to get home.
I remember that.
And like the first 3 hours were normal. So the last 3 hours took me like 9 hours.
Yeah.
Or 6 hours, or maybe I'm exaggerating, but I was like,
whatever, fucking that many hours in a snowstorm feels
well,
like way more
I thought I was
hours.
gonna fucking die. I was driving
Yeah.
slow as shit. Like, all right, so my back's against the wall. I have no money, like nothing going on. Like, just trying to get back to Rochester. I like, if I were to lose control of the car off the side of the road, like, there's no safety net. Like, I'm gonna call someone,
Yeah.
and then I don't have money to pay for someone to pull me out of the snow or something. So I'm driving like 20 miles an hour, trying not to have a fucking panic attack. And I basically would drive for half an hour, pull off the road, and like chill for like 15 minutes and recoup, and then do it again and do it again. And I had like probably like 5 cups of coffee, stopping and getting coffee, trying to keep, I get back to Rochester, and the furnace broke while I was gone. My apartment's like 34 degrees or something.
I remember that winter too, where you were like, just like opening the oven, like having that open. Then you working at the skate park and the heater there was broken.
I forgot about that. So then,
like,
I'm back
it's cold.
at Rochester, and I'm just like curled up on the couch with every blanket I had, just being like, alrighty. I was already super homesick. I was already like trying to figure out what the hell was going on, and there I am. I actually got a really pee, so I'm going to pause this real quick. All right, we just stopped for a pee break. That was a really good break because I had to recoup here.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Oh, I didn't even mention the fact the bike shop burned down. I knocked my fucking front teeth out. Like, there's
a lot.
There's
in
so
there.
much shit in there. All right, so here's the thing. So
just the highlights.
yeah, the highlights. I'll just say, like, from that, I was already pretty depressed, and then that just made it so much worse. And it continued to get worse because I lost the job at the skate park, and my dad died 2 years ago. But the pause there is good because that really, the whole point, like I said in the beginning, where it's like, I would tell you all the shit I went through, and I'm gonna tell you how those are not the reasons why I was unhappy. Like, they played a role, obviously, a big role, but they were not at all the main role. So the big one was the deterioration of that relationship I had. Everything else sucked. I put too much. My entire my psyche was built on a foundation that was that relationship. Like, it wasn't her fault at all. It wasn't her at all. It was me. I was like, oh, everything sucks. I got this girl, so it's fine.
Yeah.
So when that fell out, when that support fell out, there was literally nothing to catch me. Nothing at all. And it absolutely devastated me. Like, it was bad. And that made it all, that was tough, and I had a lot of embarrassing days, like calling her and saying shit that I definitely shouldn't have said, and just being like, oh God, so many things.
Yeah.
So many things. And I was just soaking in sad music and just getting drunk all the time. Like, I probably spent 2 years just getting blacked out every night and crying on the living room floor, just putting on sad music really loud and laying in front of the speakers. And like, how many times my keys, well, I never really drove drunk because I rode my bike, but like, I couldn't find my keys in the morning. They're like in the door on the outside still, like, not remembering how I rode my bike home from the bar, just like super just
full speed penny board.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's funny. Like, I kept my shit together and I was functional and everything, and most people didn't know that I was, I don't even want to use the word suffering, but yeah, I was definitely suffering.
I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't going out to the bars often with you at that point, but...
Well, you weren't 21 yet.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Yeah, so that was like, all that other shit, all that ridiculous shit that, like, could very possibly, any one of those things could devastate a person. Mm-hmm. And I made it through all of those. And mostly because I was leaning on a relationship and the relationship failed. But there's still another piece to this puzzle. And this is kind of why I was freaking out about doing this, and this is going to be really fucking hard. So shitty. But I can't believe I'm going to do this. Whatever. I basically had struggled my entire life with what would be diagnosed as gender dysphoria. Yeah. So underneath all of that shit has always been that struggle, which is obviously not an easy struggle. And part of this podcast is like to point out that all of this shit in the story doesn't mean anything compared to the internal dialogue that's happening.
Which no one else can know.
Yeah, give me a second here.
Yeah.
This is a lot smoother than every other time I've told someone else, so... Mostly because I'm pretty content with myself. There's a narrative people subscribe to when it comes to like anxiety and depression and these sort of psychological like battles that I don't agree with, and I need to be the voice of reason. I want to be the voice of reason. Like there's going to be people laying on their floor crying. I want them to hear your voice and my voice being like, no, like. Hold on.
Gotta take a little time.
You gotta take a little time and like reflect on those things and analyze yourself honestly. When you just subscribe to some sort of thing like, just do it this way and that's the answer, never gonna work. Ever. Yeah. You have to look at yourself honestly from every angle possible and figure out what works for you. So I basically, so when I moved, that was always underlying for my whole life. It was always there. Part of moving here was like, well, I need to get away from all these outside pressures so I could have my own apartment, my own place to kind of like figure out my shit, figure out where it stands, figure out where I stand, figure out what my long-term goals are. And then the girlfriend, that crushes me out.
Yeah,
then I'm just fucking devastated.
Yeah,
like,
you're in this place.
I literally... was living up here with I had virtually no like friends. I had no idea who I was. Like and it was just a fucking mess. And I was just kind of thinking I was getting my shit together when Rasp laid me off and then my dad died. There's a reason the video I made was called Rock Bottom. I'm like, because I was in tough shape. And I like, if you've been there, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's like, I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to be alive.
I completely understand as much as I can say I can,
It's like, and you can imagine having conversations with people about anxiety and depression, and when they'll marginalize my opinion. Oh, well, you don't get it. It's like, oh, I don't get it.
Yeah.
It's like
what a thing. It's such a crazy thing that people throw around that's so just wrong. You have no business telling anyone what they feel or don't. It's fucking crazy.
And everyone, my worst day feels like your worst day. Your rock bottom felt like my rock bottom. There is some variance. Some shit's worse than other shit, but generally it works like that. And I know that my rock bottom, like I now know where it came from. I now know I have a decent understanding of what my mistakes were. And I know it's certainly, there was a lot more stacked against me than what other people have. So it'll be much easier, like the less that's stacked against you, the easier it'll be for you to kind of put your ducks in a row to put yourself in a mental space where you can move towards being, fulfilled. There was a lot more stacked against me. And I had to get this out. So it's fucked up. I had to validate my opinion. Because like, regardless of whether I ever struggled or not, if the advice is effective, it should be effective. But I got to throw myself under the bus and say that this is how it is and this is how I am, to give perspective. Because if I were to talk to most people about my views on gender related things, they would come at me like I'm ignorant because there's a narrative out there that I don't necessarily agree with. and how many conversations I've had to bite my tongue and people saying dumbass shit and be like, no, well, it's a hard thing to understand. And I'm like, yeah? Oh, is it? It's ridiculous. I don't want to go into that too much on this one, but I had to put it out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going down my notes here, wanted to die. Well, I didn't want to be alive.
I think that's an interesting thing too, because the not wanting to be alive but not wanting to die thing, like it seems like the easiest way out. Like you don't want to like kill yourself or think about doing it, because that's I don't know. It's just such a. I don't agree with it. I think it's the most selfish thing you can do, and it's a cop out. Well, I understand feeling that way, but like.
I think that deep sense of purpose that I had from a kid is probably what kept me alive. Because it was just like, for a while in those days, I was like, oh, my life is fucking meaningless and pointless, and I'm never going to be happy. Like, literally, I was only, like, being content was what I was aiming for, because I didn't think happiness was possible. So I was like, well, what I'm going to do is I want to dedicate, my life to improving other people's lives and making other people happy, because I thought it wasn't an option for me. So I was like, all right. So that's kind of like what kept me going. And I was talking to Matt Smith about that on his podcast. So like, he's like, oh, you were always productive and you were doing this. I was like, every fucking thing I do is me fighting for validation to feel like a halfway decent human being. And I've managed to figure out a formula that kind of works for me. And it's fucking ridiculous. I have to, ride 4,000 miles and make sure I get outside every single day and make sure I have my meditative space and make sure everything I do is productive. It's like, I don't necessarily want to work this many hours and do all this stuff, but I realized I have to adjust my lifestyle and my diet to fuel the activities I need to do that keep my brain stable so I can go back to the beginning of the circle. It all plays together. Like, I found the formula that works for me. It's not super convenient. I don't know what's going to happen when I get older. If it stays the way it is now, eventually I'll get to the point where I won't have the physicality to do what I need to do, but maybe I'll be more fulfilled when I'm older. Maybe I'll just kill myself at some point. No, I'm kidding.
I think the meditative state that you put yourself in every day will get you to the point of finding what you need that will, supplement some of that physicality that you'll lose in your age.
Well, it's getting better and better all the time,
Like it's progress.
Keeping my work scheduled and getting my thoughts out and everything. Like, this podcast is going to help me a lot with that. Helping other people helps me. So some other key things I'd written down here just to do it. Like, I didn't really talk about my dad a whole lot, except for that he was awesome and he was always awesome. But I basically lived in the fear of that phone call because both my brothers were engaged in serious drug use. My mom was terribly unhealthy. She had like 3 feet of her intestines removed. She has Hashimoto's. She has colitis. She has she destroyed her body with substances, like completely obliterated it. So it's like I was always living in the fear, like you get a phone call at a not normal hour, and you're like, when I got the phone, I was on Culver right over here, just under the thing, and I was like, why is there a Cape Coral number calling me? And I was like, my dad's dead.
Yeah. And
it was my uncle, and he's like, he talks really fast. And he's like, your dad's dead. And I was like, what? And he's like, I got up, she's sitting in the chair, the TV's still on, your dad's dead. And I was like, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I called Gary, and he didn't answer, and then I drove to work. I was working in the machine shop that time, and I basically cried through the whole shift, but did everything I needed to do, and then I left. I was working through Jeff's company.
Yeah.
So I texted Jeff and I told him what happened. I was like, I'm going to do what I need to do, and he's like, why are you there? And I was like, well,
I had to be at work.
It's a machine shop. Yeah. If I don't check the orders, I was doing third-party quality control. If I don't inspect them, they don't ship.
Yeah.
Like, so I went there and I did the first half of my day so their orders could ship, and then I left. I only had 1 day left in the contract. I think Jeff might actually went and finished up the thing for me.
Yeah, I had a similar thing. Anytime I get I've had a lot of loss that I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, but anytime I get a phone call at work, like, people know my schedule at this point anyway in my life. You don't text me after 5 and expect me to do anything.
I'm going to start calling you at work all the time.
It's so scary. Anytime Anytime I get
Don't be rude.
anytime I get a phone call, I'm like, oh fuck, someone died. And I got that phone call when my stepdad died, and I went home. I said hi to my mom. We cried a bunch. I said hi to my family, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm gonna go back to work.
It's all you really can do.
Yeah, and everyone at work was like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Well, my station's not closed. I got prep for tomorrow. Like, I want to."
What are you gonna do? Sit home and cry?
Yeah, like cool. Everyone's fine at home. They're a mess, but I'm just gonna go. Like, it's the one thing you have control over.
Yeah.
It's a meditative space too. You're just like, all right, I'm gonna do this thing, and then I'm gonna leave.
It's crazy. So crazy. Yeah. So when my dad died, it was just like. He was the person I didn't live in fear of that phone call, And then that happened. I was like, oh, fuck. I was just starting to feel pretty good. And then that fucking happened, and that kind of sucked. And the skate park started to open. I was pretty bummed when I turned 30, but I think I might have been listening to too much Julian Baker. But I don't know if I was sad because of that or if I listened to that much because I was sad, But, and obviously, building the skate park was like, I did like 100-something hours a week for like 4 months straight. So that's going to really kind of fuck up your whole system. I had 0 free time, 0 meditative space, 0 riding. It was like, my cortisol was probably through the fucking roof. So I was probably dealing with the fallout of that for several months after that. Jeez. God damn. Man, Gary got into a terrible car accident and almost died right after my dad died. Like the day we got back to Jersey, like some random guy like pulled him out of the car. Like Gary like went back to Jersey, got fucked up, nodded out, drove right into a car dealership, hit a Corvette and a Chevy Silverado dually, like the two nicest cars in the lot right out front. Like fucking, he sent the 9, dude. And somebody driving by like pulled him out of the car. He would have died. Like I don't know what my life would be like if right after my dad died, Gary died. Well, then Nick's dead now too. Like, it's just insane. Like it's hard to believe that that's all true. And what's even more hard to believe is that Gary's personal struggles with his drug addiction and everything are way worse than my struggles.
Yeah,
it's like that's why I say Gary's a tough motherfucker, and I wouldn't fuck with him because he's dealt with more than
most people.
Yeah,
for sure.
For real.
And what's so interesting about the people that have been through the most is if it seems like they're the nicest, they're the most reasonable people. Dude, it's like that expression, like the smarter you get, the dumber you realize you are. Yeah, it's
like the more you lose, the more you realize what you have.
Yeah,
and like I've lost or almost lost like everything. I'm so thankful I never killed myself. I used to fantasize about it all the time. I replay my rock bottom moments over and over and over. I wish I wrote down the date. Like there was 2 back-to-back nights, and like it's bad. Yeah. I was so fucking depressed. Pretty sure I like just literally just passed out on my living room floor crying, and I left my front door open for 2 days. Like in my like delusional depressed thing, I was like, someone needs to save me, so I'm gonna leave my door open. Like,
yeah.
In hindsight, I'm like, that sounds insane, but like,
it makes sense when you're in that space.
I was so desperate for someone to help me, and pretty much unwilling to ask anyone for help that like that seemed like who the fuck? Someone's gonna walk down my driveway. Oh, the door's open. Oh, Dave. Yeah. Dude, you good, dude? I brought you this rope. You should hang yourself. No, I'm kidding.
Thanks, bud. It's just what I was waiting for.
I like that, I'm very fortunate that I never really attempted to kill myself. I just thought about it a lot. And my brother can't say that. It's like, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. John just texted me about the Alex Jones podcast. By falling in love with bikes again and learning about psychology was really big, and getting into my nutrition, I really figured it out. Like, I think in hindsight, a lot of the issues were subscribing to other people's narrative of what healthy should be, both mentally and physically. Mm-hmm. I think poor diet. I know for sure that the refined carbohydrates and sugar has a role on my psyche, and I've been playing with that with my diet, and I absolutely fall into depression if I eat too much carbs and sugar.
Really?
The weekend of the contest at the skate park, I ate a bunch of donuts because Clark brings in donuts. Shout out Clark.
I brought in donuts too.
Yeah, all I ate was donuts and pizza for like 2.5 days straight.
Yeah.
And then by Wednesday, I was like really questioning why I felt so shitty.
Huh.
Like too much sugar and carbs, and I felt fucking worthless and hollow and like unfulfilled, even though I was having good days, productive days, going out and riding. Like, there's no reason for that. And
Yeah.
I was like, I've implemented so many lifestyle and diet changes that when I start to feel different, I'm like, well, I know every variable in my formula because I've formulated my formula through some sort of formulation.
Formula One?
Yeah. And so I was like, well, why do I feel this way right now? You know, the beauty in this philosophy is that when you're creating your own ideology, once you get there after a year, 2 years, 3 years, and you start to feel good and decent, and then something doesn't feel good, you're like, what's the trigger?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I eat intentionally. Well, I didn't eat intentionally. Well, what'd you eat? This. Huh, interesting. And I've been playing around with that idea because when my carb intake goes too high, too much pizza,
Mm-hmm.
over the course of like a week or two, I feel a little bummed.
Yeah.
You know, so I honestly think my struggles were obviously the psychological network, the horrible psychological structure I built up around my mental stability and that one relationship, the internal struggles for identity, and then the poor diet. Really, because I always had an outlet of riding, always had it. I just didn't use it that in a meditative manner. You know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you were, but you weren't as cognizant of how meditative it was. It was just like a thing you did that made you feel better and good, which is meditative. But
yeah, I rode for clips though.
Yeah, it's different.
I didn't ride for myself.
Yeah,
I rode for other people. Like I talk to people. I'm like, I don't give a fuck if I film a clip anymore. Like, I love the battle of learning a new trick when I'm riding.
Yeah,
and whether it's on an iPhone, a real camera, it's in a DVD, it's on Instagram, it sits on my phone, I never post it, or I don't film it. It's the same exact battle, and I feel just as rewarded. Mm-hmm. People are doing things in their lives where that could be fulfilling, and then it's not because they're looking at a different metric. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get it from other people through likes and comments rather than looking internally for validation.
Yeah. I mean, like we've talked about, I've never been like someone that rides for clips, but I like to document what I'm doing just because it's fun. But like in the last couple of months, as I've gotten gotten back into bike riding much more regularly, like I film the least. I've been doing the best stuff I've been doing in years, and I'm like, it just makes me feel good. Doesn't even matter. Like it's doing it for me rather than the internet.
For real, like it's good to document because you can go back and I've had 10 video sections. You know, I've always worked on DVDs. I've done 2 full lengths. Like,
I mean, I look at the edits I make, and I'm like, I used to do that. I used to do that over the box.
And that's going to be so valuable when you're older.
Yeah,
when you're really old, like that's benchmarking. It's going to be reflective, and it's going to be super important. But you can do that and not have and not like shoot yourself in the foot by looking for validation through an external source. Yeah. Only you can validate yourself. Once you're self-validated, well, then other people's, it's nice. It's like icing on the cake.
Yeah, it's like I'm already stoked on it. You being stoked on it's just that much better, you know?
Hey, you don't want to just sit there eating a tub of icing. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
You got to bake your own cake.
It's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, a little pastry joke, dude. Oh, man. Well, this is going to be a really long one. I'm probably actually going to put this on YouTube and create a YouTube channel. I go down my notes here. Yeah, that's pretty much everything.
That was a lot. That was a beautiful synopsis of your story.
Yeah, I tried to make it short. It's still like a fucking hour, you know?
Yeah. That's a lot, man.
Yeah, I'm saying, like, I've been arguing with people for years about shit, and like, yeah, well, you know, you don't know what other people's struggles are like. I don't. I know what my struggles was like. And
Yeah.
I know it was real.
Yeah.
It was the realest fucking thing. It was actually the only thing. That emptiness, that just like endless like abyss, the void inside yourself. It's like it's just when you're depressed, you can't feel it because you're looking at this massive void and you're only thinking of a massive thing to film it, which is never going to happen because when you're depressed, you just don't have the energy. You spend so much of your energy just trying to function. You're never going to fill a massive void with a massive thing. But every little incremental thing. You can
that
fill your own
fix.
grave one shovelful at a time. It's a morbid example.
Yeah.
But it's what it is, little bit by little bit. And you fill that in.
That's actually a really good example. Rather than like the really big thing being putting yourself in a grave, you're just filling it back in.
Yeah.
With a shovel full of progress every time.
That's why it's progression-based health.
Yeah.
Realistic goals at realistic timelines that give you, you're depressed, all your brain's all out of whack.
Mm-hmm.
The only way to fix that, you have to work out your serotonin systems like you're working it out. And you can't just go to the gym, pick up the heaviest barbell and expect it to work. You start with the littlest one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're like, oh, well, this is really light. I can move to the next one up.
Yeah.
It's just like, what do you call it? The zone of proximal development or whatever you call it, like the zone or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it has to be hard enough that it's moving you forward and hard enough that, like, you can question whether you're going to accomplish it.
Yep.
If you went to the gym for a year and always lifted the same exact barbell, the same kettlebell or whatever, or tire, whatever it is.
It's heavy enough to be valuable.
Yeah, it's going to get easier and easier, but it's going to be less and less fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be present to be fulfilled.
Yep. You got to understand what you're doing. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
It's an uphill battle.
Yep.
And that's why Wrench Lyfe is lifestyle, because it's not just like going to the gym for 30 hours a day isn't necessarily a lifestyle change. It's just a thing you've added to your life. A lifestyle change is, like things like intentionally parking farther so you can walk, or just not driving, walking, riding your bike somewhere instead. Like, it's implementing these things that improve your life little by little every day in a slow progression towards having a lifestyle that approximates something that will build you mental fulfillment and physical capabilities. Like I don't do what I do to be in shape. Like, it's a nice benefit. Like, people look at it and they're like, wow, look, he's in shape. And I'm like, cool, I'll take your social credit, but it's not what I'm after.
Yeah.
It's like being in shape is a really nice side effect for what I have to do to have mental stability.
Yeah. Yeah. More icing on the cake. That's not the reason. It's just a side,
And
byproduct.
I'm rambling on here. I want to do one last point because this is a really big one. Because most people will hold on, I'm mad dry. A lot of people will look for fulfillment within relationships. I didn't necessarily do that. I'm really honest. I was always outwardly honest. Inwardly honest is something I had to work on. But because I'm honest, and because the way, like, when I was saying how I feel, like how like this the gender-related stuff, it was impossible for me to actually honestly try to find a relationship. Because if I had not been upfront about who I am, I'm just lying. And every second I would be with that person, it's like, it's just a lie. It's all this is a lie. And then the likelihood of someone being okay with it is decent. The likelihood of them being like into it is pretty unlikely. So it makes one of the main outlets that people find for fulfillment pretty much is off the table because of how I am and how I am in terms of honesty. And I had to go through all these years of figuring this shit out to be mentally stable enough to be like, I'm going to take finding, love in an honest manner that's honest to myself and honest to the other person, which obviously is a massive hurdle.
Yeah.
And I'm fortunate enough that, like, it's kind of worked out. In the past, when I was younger, I had interactions with other women, just women, other in relation to the one girlfriend I talked about. I never had really any other girlfriends, though, until I moved here. And I would tell them, not like the truth, because I actually had no idea what the truth actually was. I was like, I just feel kind of this way or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, it's fine, it's all great and everything. And then later on, it's like they just told people and said other things about me, and it's like, because they were interested in me, they didn't really give a shit about me. It's just like just dumb kids being like, they didn't really understand it, they didn't care to understand it. They were just like, no, it's fine, because like they were into me probably based on looks or something, and they wanted that fulfillment. And after the the bubble pop, they didn't give a shit about anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kids being kids. So that's a huge hurdle. I'm lucky. I'm just a solitary person to begin with. I love being alone.
It's great.
So I managed to go years and years and years without any of that. I'm fortunate now. It seems to be working okay. So
Sure seems like it.
well, I'm too busy to really have like a typical relationship. We see each other like 3 times a week.
Yeah.
All those moments are just really precious, beautiful moments.
Exactly. It's just like anything else that you oversaturate it doesn't have that same feeling.
Yeah.
Like and you take it for granted.
Yeah, I had to be honest with myself, to be honest with other people, to really get to where I am now, and I hope I can do that for other people.
Great.
Ugh.
That seems like a good spot.
What?
Seems like a good spot to call it.
Yeah. It's 2:00, so I'm at like 16 hours of fasting, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna make some food.
Sweet.
I'm gonna.
Smacked lip.
I don't know why I end with that, so. Well, thanks for coming over and joining this moment.
Yeah.
And
Glad I could be here, man. It's great.
yeah,
Sweet.
if you listen to this, if you're one of the 6 people that listen to it, feel free to tell a friend. I'm trying to make the world a little bit better, one little step of progress at a time, one little person at a time. So,
Sweet.
thanks for listening.